The irony is intentional. It's intentional. What's up, everyone? I'm Jack Fossett. Welcome to Real Guitar Talk, the series where I'm talking about real things that are pertinent to the modern guitar player. And today I want to talk about the internet in general, clickbait, and whether or not clickbait is ruining the guitar world. Again, not just clickbait. I actually want to go further than that. Just kind of the speed and saturation of everything. It's kind of ironic that oversaturation in a different way could be associated with modern guitar playing. Clickbait. Let me just tell you from the point of view of someone making videos, it's something unavoidable. I don't want to call it a necessary evil or something. I don't like it. But there is a certain reality of needing to play that game in order to get your video seen. We're all still somewhat kind of enslaved to the algorithm, so to speak. My channel's doing really well. I'm very excited about how well my channel's doing. I'm obviously not one of the biggest channels out there, but I'm really, really thrilled that so many of you take the time to subscribe to me and follow me. And we've got a lot of great discussion and videos, and all that's great. But I still put out videos sometimes that totally bomb. No views, because it's slightly different than I've done before, or because I don't post at the right time of day, or something, again, kind of based on the algorithm. What always gets a lot of views are things with clickbait titles. Now, what I've tried to do is to make sure that the content of the video is still worthwhile. Again, you look at the clickbait and say, like, okay, well, that's at least write it off as an advertising technique. Why does it work so well? I mean, I think that gets really deep into the human psyche, and obviously clickbait goes way beyond the guitar world. In fact, I actually really think it's ruining media in general. You look at major news sites who are using clickbait, and a lot of people aren't getting past clickbait. They're headline readers, and they form their opinions based on the world, based on just what they're reading. But we have deep inquiring minds. We have unsettled minds that always want more. And I think we have this recognition that we don't fully get the world, and we never will. So when you see something that's kind of like, it sort of prods your inquiring mind and manipulates you in a way to say, maybe there's some sort of secret that I've been missing that will change everything. We get pulled into it. We get drawn to it. I think that's that's a very, very basic psychological understanding of what's happening and why clickbait is so successful. But the problem, again, is that it's sort of like it's drawing everything into it like a black hole, such that if you don't do that technique to a certain level, you're not gonna get views. You're not gonna get clicks. And again, I'm not above this. I'm not claiming to be above this. I'm sort of recognizing it as a problem. But I've had clickbait titles on my videos and things before. Obviously, this one, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. But, in other videos, like if I'm coming out with a video that I'm working really hard on, sometimes I think okay, what's the best title? What's the best thumbnail I can do to draw people in? And sometimes it takes you down that road. Now, the speed of the internet, and this is where I want to shift directions a little bit also, is how it's kind of changing the guitar landscape. And I do want to be very clear. I am about to criticize some people's musical expression. If that's not your cup of tea, feel free to tune out now. I'm not necessarily saying that guitar players are bad, and I will be perfectly honest when I say I don't know for sure. This is my perspective on it. Bear with me. This is one of the best times ever to learn guitar because there are so many resources out there to learn guitar. Tons of free videos. Of course, that's also negatively impacting the guitar lesson world and everything. And being able to self-publish with really basic equipment that you can get yourself out there, as opposed to, if you were one of the early guitar players. It used to be that there were gatekeepers. There were people who kind of controlled what everyone had access to seeing. Obviously, in music, that's a huge thing. Record labels, managers. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. Obviously, that was sort of ripe for corruption and greed and manipulation and all kinds of things like that. But it did change the way that people approached it. You really had to sell something good. And there was an interesting thing. I feel like we've regressed in a way. See, here's the problem with the self-publishing side of it. The self-publishing side of it is great in the sense that you no longer have to rely on pitching yourself to a manager or a record label. You do have to pitch yourself to the general public, and you have to do it with everyone else in the world doing the same thing. Oversaturation. So what has that reduced it to? What has that caused a regression in? In the early days of rock and roll, you had to have a really catchy song that would grab people's attention, get to the chorus, the whole phrase, don't bore us, get to the chorus, grab their attention, be quick, get them to dance, get them to remember it, and then as soon as you remember it, it's done. And then as rock and roll and guitar playing sort of evolved, it became much more of an artistic expression. Things like Sgt. Pepper changed the world, and then that sort of gave birth to more ideas from Pink Floyd, and all kinds of, it really became an art form. Nowadays, you need to grab their attention in like 10 seconds or less as people are doom scrolling. You need to do something flashy and quick, and I see tons of guitar players, really good, better than I am, more successful than I am, but what is one of the biggest things that like young guitar players are doing? Some kind of a catchy take on a song that's been out forever that they do for a viral video for TikTok. Is that bad? I at least personally want to see more artistry. I want to see more people. I want to see people paying attention to new music. Again, it goes back to human nature. It's like, whoa, you're not going to believe this guitar player who does this crazy, I don't know, he does a solo on a Hanson song or something like that. It's just something ridiculous. But, it's got 80 billion views or whatever. And then you've got other people kind of out there writing songs, still working the grind, and no one's paying attention to them because it doesn't give you that reaction. I don't like what that's doing. And there's also a lot of guitar players who I think are extremely talented, and they're doing that or they're playing elevator music and just sort of showing off. It's more like a recital than it is like, this is what I actually feel. It's like, look at this cool thing, and I did this because I want all these views and stuff. And it's like, okay, but what are you actually feeling? That's what I would like to see move forward. And I don't know how to change it or if it will change. I don't know if people will get bored of it to the point where the culture shifts and then switches over to something more like that. We're very much in new territory technologically speaking. And for as good as it is that you can self-publish and self-learn, again, it raises not only the number of voices, but the bar that's out there. Some of the guitar players that are out there are so unbelievably technically skilled that some of the guitar players of old, of yesteryear, who made it big, people wouldn't pay them any attention nowadays. Now, I know there's some kind of a historical perspective of that, of like, yes, well, people keep sort of moving the bar forward a little bit more. But I guess the point is that the more players who keep kind of coming out, the more players who keep doing this, the faster everything gets. I sort of go, where's the substance? It needs to have substance. Going back to the point of the clickbait. Clickbait, yeah, it's a sign of the times. It's a terrible sort of thing. I don't like what it's doing, but it still needs to have substance underneath. It needs to have something with meaning. It needs to have something that separates it artistically, as opposed to just something that you do to grab people's attention for a couple of seconds so that you can get, 1 million views on your video or whatnot. I hope this didn't turn into too much of a rant today. It's something that's been on my mind a lot, again, because I don't like playing the clickbait game. I'll be perfectly honest. And yeah, I do it when I have to. And what's the line between clickbait and not clickbait? Obviously, like, it's smart to just make a good title for your video. Where's the line between that and what is clickbait? And that would be a subject for an entirely another video. But I hope you kind of see the point that I'm going to with this, which is that I really hope that music and guitar playing with substance starts to regain a foothold in a crazy, fast, doom-scrolling world. What do you think about all this? Please let us know in the comments. Kind of a downer. Yeah, let's be perfectly honest, this isn't a more upbeat, hey, but there's this. It's, you know, it's the world that we live in. I'm Jack Fossett. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Despair front and center.